Hey, it's 2021, and we're bringing you the first episode of Have You Heard Now? When Michael Jordan abruptly retired from the Chicago Bulls following the 1993 season and his third straight NBA championship and his third straight finals MVP, fans across the world were shocked. The best way I can explain it to young fans is if Patrick Mahomes won his second straight Super Bowl in a couple of weeks and then retired to go make a career out of professional basketball. It was shocking to everybody. But when MJ returned 2 years later, he issued a two-sentence statement that said, "I'm back." And so fans, we are so excited that we got the announcement yesterday from Nichols College Director of Athletics Eric Gobiel and Susan Engelkemeyer that sports are back at Nichols College. Winter sports seasons, we're hoping to start by February 20th. And while the CCC is not sponsoring a championship for winter sports, our teams are going to be able to go out and compete. We're going to have a season. Our student athletes worked so hard in the fall. They did everything we asked of them. They followed protocol. They wore their masks. They socially distanced. They stayed away from large gatherings. And this is the reward that we promised them, is that they would be able to return to play. So February 20th is roughly when we're looking to get back these winter sports, and that includes men's, women's basketball, men's, women's ice hockey. Spring sports, we're hoping for a March 27th start, and we're hoping for a full-blown conference schedule. Everyone gets to play a round robin, and then we'll have a conference championship. So we're just so excited to have everybody back on campus next week and get back to sports and just a little sense of normalcy again around Dudley. So we're super excited about that. Fall sports that were postponed late last summer will also have the opportunity to compete this spring on a limited basis, 5 to 7 contests. Again, all student athletes will retain their eligibility heading into next fall, but we may have a football game or two, a couple of field hockey, women's soccer, men's soccer, maybe even some women's volleyball, and some women's tennis and cross country. So lots of sports that we may have, again, just on a limited basis, but we were hoping to give those student athletes the opportunity to resume their collegiate careers and compete this spring. We wanted to start 2021 with one of our new spring sports coaches. He's not necessarily new in the sense of this is his first year. He did start 2020 as a men's lacrosse coach. He got 6 games into a season before it was canceled, so he's been ramping it up. He's been recruiting hard. He's excited to get back on the turf. So John Carroll is going to join us in just a minute. We taped it right before the inauguration of Joe Biden as the country's 46th president, and also before the Islanders-Devils game on Thursday night. John is a big Islanders hockey fan, myself a New Jersey Devils fan. We opened with a little bit of banter about that, and then we spoke about how recruiting has changed, the freshmen that are coming in, his senior class and how important they've been, and just all things Nichols lacrosse. So we really hope you guys enjoy, and we're really looking forward to having sports back in just about 4 weeks. We're kicking off 2021 with Nichols men's lacrosse coach John Carroll. John's about to start his second season at the college and hopefully his first full season. Before we get into lacrosse, the NHL's back. Your Islanders are playing well. The Devils are my team. They're playing well. And there's a big matchup tomorrow night. What have you seen from your team so far that you like?
It's been very up and down. The Islanders came out that opener against the Rangers, took it to them in the first period and ran away with it. And then Clutterbuck throws the puck off Varley's throat, and that game went totally sideways. So going into that Boston matchup, I was pretty nervous. And, they played their game, and I got to say the Devils are very impressive right now. I'm excited for that matchup. And I'm not feeling as confident as I normally would about the Islanders beating the Devils right now. So Jack Hughes is something else, and it's exciting to watch.
He's playing very well. I mean, normally your fourth line with Barton, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck is your key. And Saturday, they kind of help you a little bit. Can't shoot at the goalie's head during warm-ups there. So, the Rangers are good. You're going to battle with them all year. But, no, it's a good win you guys had against the Bruins. That's exactly Islanders hockey. 1-0 game, defensive-minded. And as far as the Devils, they're playing well. I don't have very high expectations right now. It's a really young team. They bought into the youth movement. But Jack Hughes is playing really well, and they're getting great goaltending out of Mackenzie Blackwood. So should be fun. And, of course, for Devils fans, it's going to be weird seeing Andy Green in the blue and orange for sure. And if Corey Schneider's on the bench, that's another guy that for a long time was important to Devils fans as well.
That Lamoriello connection has been big for the Islanders. I'm finally used to it at this point.
It's still strange for Devils fans as well, but hopefully both of us get what we want out of the season, which is just a playoff berth. You probably have higher expectations than I do, but if the Devils can squeak in that top 4 somehow, I'd be pretty excited for that. But enough hockey talk. We won't bore our Bruins listeners out there and our New England fans that are into our tri-state teams. Nichols lacrosse, where are we right now?
We're in constant communication. Right after the new year, had a Zoom call with the guys just to kind of just reassess everything as far as the mindset of us preparing for the season. A lot of uncertainty, still waiting for some announcements, but overall, guys are fired up to get back to campus and get practicing. The fall went great for us. We started in about mid-October. We went 4 times a week for 4 weeks. We had started lifting actually a month prior to hitting the field. So we got the freshmen in there to get used to the strength and conditioning program with Coach Bob, and saw some big improvement in their numbers. From when they arrived on campus to when we wrapped up the semester in November. But the practices were high energy. Guys were really excited to be back out there together and competing. And a lot of our practices were around just high energy level. We split the team up into 2 groups and do competition drills for push-ups or burpees, or maybe a sprint or 2 after the drill wrapped up, but just to keep the guys engaged and firing on all cylinders and having a purpose when we get out there on the field. It was really exciting to see just the build up for them. They didn't waste it. Where I think in the spring before COVID shut everything down, we might have been taking things for granted a little bit. There wasn't any of that when we hit the field this fall. So that was really good to see. And I'm excited to get the group back and hit the field for spring and see what's to come with that.
I know you knew going into the fall that things would be different with practices and workouts. When did it really hit you, though? Was there something that you were looking forward to doing, just you went, wait, we can't do that, or we have to do it different? When did it really start to hit you when you got on the field that how different things were going to be?
Doing the condensed practices with smaller groups definitely was something that I had never encountered before. It actually gave me an opportunity as a coach to just kind of rethink how I'm going to individually teach positions. I've had a lot of experience coaching with the defense and the goalies and the faceoffs in the past. Offense, I had a 1-year stint as the assistant coordinator at Sacred Heart, so I've had some experience coaching offense, but I've never really gotten that one-on-one work with the attackmen or midfielders. So I really did some homework, did some research, watched film on our teams, noticed things that we were doing well and things we needed to improve upon, and then just kind of catered drills in those groups. We did 3 of them for 2 hours total, 40 minutes per group, 2 offense, 1 defense, and just tried to reel in the fundamentals. As far as offense goes, dodging from up top on the run, shooting with your hands free, stepping down, feet planted, dodging from behind the goal, finding different ways to get to the middle and beat your defender. It really gave me an opportunity as a coach to just expand my repertoire, so to speak, work with different position groups. And ultimately, as the head coach, that's my job, is to be able to help anybody who needs help regardless of the position. So for me, it was a tremendous period of growth, even from when things shut down in March until, when we wrapped up the fall. I had to do a lot of just self-evaluation, reassessing things, thinking about how I could improve with all that time. I used the Lou Lamoriello phrase, if you have the time, use it. So I tried to take that advice to heart. And I think I self-improved, self-evaluated myself as a coach to just better the program moving forward. Because I think drinking out of the fire hose last year as a first-year head coach with everything that happened, it was hitting me all at once. Couldn't really take a moment to think about it and take it all in and evaluate that. So the time was kind of a silver lining there, where I had that extra period of time to think about things and get better.
I think a lot of people did a lot of self-assessing during this time as well, and it's good to see that you came out on the other side of this better than you were before in terms of coaching. Let's talk about the off-the-field stuff that goes on with the lacrosse program now in terms of, with this pandemic, how are fall practices, and how has it been for you keeping your kids motivated for classes, for practice, keeping team morale up from dropping shoulders? Because I imagine for the fall teams that haven't had a season yet, practices were tough because they didn't know when they were going to get to play and if they would get to play their season. There's a pretty good chance you guys are going to get on the field at some point this spring. But what challenges have you faced just kind of keeping the team upbeat and everything going?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest changes to the fall for us, it is our traditional off-season, so to speak. But usually we get some outside competition to scrimmage other teams, kind of a little bit of a barometer check for us as far as where we are, around halfway through fall and what we need to work on as we wrap it up and then going into the spring. Not having that period to compete against another team was definitely an adjustment. As we were getting into the end of fall, I was kind of building it up where the first 2 weeks we did the small groups, and then by the time we hit the third week of practices, we could go to the full team practices. So once we got to near the end of practice, because in the beginning we would do the competition drills and split the team up into 2 groups, we would keep those teams in scrimmage and really focus on the holistic approach of the game and incorporating everything, because you got face-offs, which is its own thing. You got clearing and riding, which is their own thing. You got man up and man down. You have offense, defense. So it's not just black and white, what we do on offense, what we do on defense. There's portions of practice where, there's only 2-3 coaches on staff, and there's 4 different portions of the game, maybe more you got to go over. So to kind of keep guys, moving forward, keep guys focused, I kind of spoon-fed them everything instead of doing it all at once and then scrimmaging for the rest of the time, because I wanted to give them something to look forward to. I wanted to give them something to try and build upon as we progress to the fall and just see steady improvement, which I think we got, which was great. So tried not to rush it all in and then just kind of play throughout the rest of the fall, because then guys get a little bored, it gets a little stale, and then you got to get really, really creative as a coach. So just wanted to build it up to a point where I felt comfortable competing, going up and down the field, and we got to that point, which was great.
I talked to new women's soccer coach Caitlin Pickle on the last Have You Heard podcast, and she mentioned that she thought her team would come out stronger from this, just from a unity standpoint and being tighter knit because of what they've gone through, and they've had more time to bond. She's a first-year coach. She came in July, maybe August, and normally you only have that 2-week training camp, and then you're right into games. And they've really had the entire fall to kind of work together and build a kind of a bond and a unity within the team. Can you sense any of that with the lacrosse program? Even though this was your non-traditional, it's definitely been different. Can you sense any of that within the lacrosse program?
I do. I definitely think this group is pretty tight. Our communication level has been pretty consistent since things ended abruptly in March. I gave them a little bit of a grace period to take it in and finish the semester, finish it strong in the classroom. Once we got to May, guys were kind of chomping at the bit to not only just get updates on what was going on, but to have something to do as far as just get through the day-to-day, because sitting at home waiting for updates and not having a plan to attack the day can be pretty tough. So, reached out to every guy over the phone or on Zoom, got a little update on how they finished the semester, how they were doing with things at home, how they were transitioning into, quarantining life and staying at home, not going out as much into the public sphere. And from there, it's just been very, very steady. Guys are constantly looking for drills, for things to do. They're getting together on their own, which, safely, which I think is great. In the past, it tended to be from just having conversations with the guys, a little bit more cliquey or smaller groups here and there, kind of sticking together. But now you really see I hate to steal a term, but the brotherhood, kind of like the hockey team talked about here. I definitely think we're trying to instill that, and I think we're still going through that process in that culture building as far as the brotherhood and establishing that. But I think we're getting there. The guys really care about each other. They want to do well. They want to hit the field together. Every time I talk to them, it's can't wait to get out there with the guys and play again and be with you, coach, and I'm just fired up to be back. And I sense that every time we hit the field this fall, it was guys were grateful to be out there playing together, and they love each other, and that's what I'm looking for. I want guys that back each other on and off the field, and they're truly looking out for one another, regardless of whether they're playing lacrosse or they're in the dining hall, walking around campus, whatever it may be. I want that continuity and that consistent communication and everybody feeling like they're included. And I don't think we're done building that culture. I don't think you'll ever be completely done, but we're much further along than when I took the job in July of 2019.
Sure. And you mentioned the brotherhood and kind of the leadership. Let's talk about your seniors, both the ones that we just kind of honored in 2020 that were given the opportunity to come back this spring, but your senior class as well. How much have they stepped up and kind of helped the team get through this situation?
Yeah, first off, the seniors from 2020, I can't thank them enough for the leadership that they showed during the whole shutdown of our season. It wasn't an easy conversation to have with them, to tell them that news, and I think they took it all in stride. And really, when I broke the news to the team, they handled it really well with being there for their teammates and for one another. Christian Baldino, Nikki Baldino, Cole Fontana, they moved on to bigger and better things. We were fortunate enough to have Tim Hutchinson and Pat Nally returning from that senior class last year. So a lot of our team is intact from last season. So that, to me, is exciting because a lot of the film that I'm watching, it's our team. That it's going to, besides the freshmen that we brought in this fall, a lot of those guys are going to be back playing for us. We had a lot of freshmen and sophomores on the field last year. So for us, that's encouraging. But the seniors now, I I've really taken a liking to this group. Our captains in particular, Dom Ambrosino, Lance Johnson, Brendan Coates, and Griffin Jason have been tremendous leaders. They were voted amongst their peers, their teammates. There was a vote during the summer when I had those conversations with the players. I took their votes for captain. I gave them a choice of, I think, 3 guys, and then kind of did some tallies at the end there, saw what the percentages were, and then I kind of, made the choice. But I let the players have a voice and be heard, and there was a consensus with those 4 guys. They really stood out amongst the participants there. So that was really great to get that going early on, to establish that communication amongst the younger players and the freshmen coming in during the summer. They've been tremendous. Anything that I'm looking for from them, as far as getting the guys going, getting the word out about announcements or important things that we need to do, meetings, they are on the ball, and they're really excited to, continue the success that we've had, over the last 5 or 6 years or so. It's definitely exciting to see. So I can't speak enough about how well they've handled this year, and I'm excited to see what we do as a group, and for them as leaders, what they do with the team when we hit the field in 2021.
Let's talk about that freshman class you mentioned. You have 3 seniors from last year who are moving on. You brought in at least 10 freshmen, I believe. Talk about their adjustment and what we can expect out of them. Not to put any high expectations on any one player or student athlete, rather. But what have the freshmen been?
The freshmen have been great. I think the benefit for them is they don't know anything else. So I think that's been the silver lining for them, is that them coming in, this is their normal as far as the experience of going to college right now. Hopefully that changes down the road, but they've taken it all in stride. And we've been in touch with them since the summer prior to the fall starting, coming in, and they've been aware of what we were trying to do when we hit the field and hit the weight room when we got to campus. And, some guys that really stood out to me were Cooper Melvin, a defenseman from Windham, New Hampshire. He has been a really, really solid presence out there on the field as a young guy. I've been impressed with him and his ability to handle the ball when we get the possession from the offense when we're defending. He has a tremendous shot for a guy carrying a long pole, and he really stood out amongst the freshmen that were out there on the field. Kyle Ettenhofer's a midfielder from Massachusetts, I believe Winchester High School. He's big guy, 6'6", can really lean into his matchup when he's dodging with the ball and gets at high percentage areas on the field to score. And he's a pretty good athlete to go out back and play defense. And his role primarily at Winchester High School was on defense, but I see him as a guy for us who could play. We run 2-way midfield system. We like to have our midfielders go from defense to offense and then change, do kind of like hockey with shift. So I think he's a guy who fits perfectly in our system, and those are 2 guys. I think some of the other freshmen played really well also. Evan Sapienza is a great athlete. The LSM position, I think he'll help us there. Sam Reisman, I've been really impressed with our defenders that we brought in. And I think that the class, top to bottom, is pretty strong. And I'm just excited to see, them play for a full season. We had them for a short little window there, 4 weeks, and I was impressed with some of the things they did, but I'm excited to see how they progress throughout a full season and how consistent they can play.
College athletics have obviously been affected by this pandemic, and it's been a hot topic with everybody. But high school sports as well, and some high schools in certain states are playing and some are not. But it definitely changed recruiting for coaches especially. How many of these freshmen were you able to see? And kind of the broader question is, how different was recruiting for you, or has it been since this pandemic?
Yeah, so a lot of the freshmen that we brought in this year, we saw them play prior to having our prospect day in October of 2019. So we saw them on the road recruiting during the summer of 2019, myself and Coach Martin, who moved on to Riviere. We were able to reach out, have those kids visit campus, and then ultimately invite them back for a full weekend of we were having our fall scrimmages, actually. We played Emmanuel College and UMass Dartmouth. And then we had our prospect day on the following Sunday. So we played on Saturday. We hosted them for overnight visits with some of our players, and then they stayed overnight and played in our prospect day on Sunday. And the majority of those players, we pretty much had a practice with them. And they all played really well, and we made our offers, and ultimately the majority of them ended up coming. So compared to this year, it's completely different. We didn't have a prospect day. We weren't fortunate enough to be able to do that. A lot of the recruiting took place either virtually, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think it's good to you need to keep up, and you need to stay on top of who you've been recruiting and keep tabs on them. But if you're looking for new players, it can be kind of difficult because you just don't get the same experience recruiting someone for the first time on film as opposed to being there and seeing how they react to certain situations and how they handle themselves. So, I had to get creative. I went on a lot of different recruiting websites, Sports Recruits and NCSA, and just kind of looking at people who were interested in our program and kind of cold emailing, reaching out to people prior to, and this was during the height of the virus. So this is like April, May. I'm watching film. I've only had 6 games to go over. It's getting a little redundant. Let me move on to recruiting, try and get the work done. And that was ultimately the path I took. I followed up on the people I'd already been talking to, and then tried to forge new relationships, find new, prospective student athletes, and ultimately found a solid group of kids who were interested. I was able to keep in touch with them throughout the spring, going into the summer, and then ultimately when things started to open up a little bit more, everything got moved to New Hampshire. So a lot of my recruiting took place in the state of New Hampshire. That's the most I've ever driven to that state in my life.
It's pretty nice. I spent some time there this summer.
It was a nice, no traffic going that way, which was great. You wake up early and get there in no time. But everything was in New Hampshire, so I really had to be strategic as far as where I was going to go recruiting, because if I left the area where, if I went to New Jersey or Pennsylvania or Delaware or Maryland, I would have had to quarantine for 2 weeks when I returned, and that was going to limit my opportunities to go recruiting in New England, where the majority of the kids we were talking to and had visited to campus, that's where they were from. So I made that decision on my own to restrict where I was going to travel to. I stayed in the states that were safe as far as their guidelines without having to quarantine to get to as many events as possible. And then the events that I needed to watch that were out of state, I got the film online. Next Level's been great. And I believe Film Exchange or First Scout Film has been great as well, to provide us with like the Under Armour tryouts and, some of these tournaments that go on all throughout the summer, Monday through Sunday. So it can be pretty overwhelming if you're on the road doing all that. The fortunate part was I didn't have to travel as much, but the flip side was there was missed opportunity to find some more kids in some areas that I really wanted to recruit in. I think we have a really good thing going with our regional recruiting as far as getting kids from Massachusetts, from Connecticut, from New Hampshire. We have a handful of guys from New York on the team right now. We have a New Jersey kid on the team now. I'm trying to get into those areas more. So that kind of hindered that a little bit, but that's still the plan, is to expand our brand, get out into some other areas. I hate calling it non-traditionals because lacrosse is everywhere now. But
it is becoming very traditional in a lot of states, for sure.
Yeah, so I want to get out into these other places and show off Nichols and what we have to offer. And I think the interest is there. It's just now the tough part is getting the people to visit because of all the restrictions. But we're going to keep broadcasting ourselves and putting ourselves out there and try to become the best program we can be and get the best kids possible wherever they're from.
You made a great point there. I hadn't thought of before, just as far as recruiting in terms of the quarantining, like choosing almost where you recruit, what will get you the best bang for your buck, so to speak, and not having to quarantine when you get back. And in speaking to Coach Mayo, our baseball coach, a couple of months back, he'd mentioned that with recruiting this year, there's going to be some hits and some misses and some diamonds in the rough, because some kids you've seen a lot and some you probably haven't seen at all, and you've just seen video of, and you take a chance on them. So can you sense some of that with the men's lacrosse as well, as maybe there'll be some kids that, well, I didn't realize they were that talented, or not to speak poorly on any of that, maybe they weren't quite the player that we thought they were.
Yeah, I definitely think we're benefiting from that already. They're one of our top 2021 recruits from New Hampshire. He visited on his own accord because of a recruit that we had already had on campus and told him how great it was, and then he showed up and said, wow, this is awesome, and reached out to me, and we had a great conversation, and multiple visits later, he is committed and coming to Nichols for next fall. So, I think we're already starting to see the benefits of kids falling through the cracks. I definitely think it's been hard on Division I coaches. They haven't been able to hit the road in over a year now. Division II as well, they've been severely restricted, so it's mostly just Division III coaches out there live recruiting. And there's bound to be kids who just are not seen or overlooked, or they get one shot to be seen and they don't get enough opportunity, or they don't do enough with it. And then the Nichols colleges of the world benefit from that. So, you definitely have to be more open to people who are interested in your program. I don't think we're in a position where we're like, oh, I don't want to recruit him because this or that. I'm more in the mindset of I'm going to bring in as many kids as I can. I'm going to coach them up. I'm going to develop them, and I'm going to see who kind of sticks around. And I think that's healthy for a program. Currently our roster number is at 34. I'd love to be at the 40 and up number. Bringing in the 10 recruits this year was great. Currently for our 2021 recruiting class, we have 7 commitments. We're still talking to a bunch of other guys right now, trying to get that number up. So we're always trying to get better. I'm never sitting back and going, I'm good with 34 guys, and I'm good with 35 guys. I want our guys to be competing all the time, keeping them honest, and just always trying to get better. So, we're still looking for 21s. We're recruiting 2022s now. It never ends. So we're just always trying to think of different ways to get better. And COVID definitely presented the opportunity for us to think outside the box a little bit as far as how we find recruits, and then being strategic about where we go because of restrictions in each from state to state. And as I was going throughout the summer, I didn't have an assistant, so I was by myself. My brother, Coach Jimmy Carroll, is great. He has a full-time job with New Balance lacrosse, so not doing too much recruiting. Myself and my graduate assistant I just hired, Quentin Himco, we're going to be primarily in charge of that. But I've been doing the recruiting myself, for a while now. So I really, really had to pick and choose where I was going to go. To your point, get the best bang for my buck, and I think that we've succeeded in that. Because if I took some risks, went to a place where I had to quarantine when I got back, I would have missed out on some great opportunities to find some of the players that we currently have committed to us.
Sure. As a father of a 9-year-old son who's playing baseball and soccer, I would selfishly love to see him play at the collegiate level, and I like to think that a lot of high school athletes have aspirations to play at the collegiate level. Have you noticed any difference in terms of the hunger or the passion to get to the college game now? And I speak from the sense of high school sports were shut down for a while, and now that they're coming back, maybe there's an increased passion or an increased level of commitment, or just, I can't believe how much I miss playing lacrosse. I want to play as long as I can. And has that translated to recruiting, or has it hadn't been fairly similar? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know about other sports, I can't speak for them, but in lacrosse, the club lacrosse scene is very prominent. It's almost as prominent as the high school varsity teams. There's some states in the country where lacrosse isn't a sanctioned sport, and the high school varsity teams are actually club teams. Like in Texas, for example, you could take a bunch of high school towns, put them all together, and say that they're the varsity team for this school, but really, they're kind of a combination of teams. It's like Long Island hockey. It's not sanctioned by the state in New York, so they play club, and it's like Smithtown, Comac, Hop Hog team put together, so to speak, as one example. But as far as the passion for the recruits, currently the ones I'm talking to now, and the ones that I've committed coming in next fall, they've been playing nonstop. They've been playing with their club team for the most part, and practicing with them and going to events on weekends and competing in that regard. I think they do miss the town identity, the pride in playing for your high school and getting the varsity letter and kind of wanting to go through that process that you saw when you were growing up, going through the youth program, going through middle school, and then getting to the varsity and getting your chance to play and wear that jersey. I think that's something that I feel bad for the kids who are in high school now that they're potentially missing out on those opportunities. But I sense that the hunger for them to want to play lacrosse, to get recruited, to go to college and play at the next level, it's still there. And I think that's boosted by the club team still playing and still being able to operate and give them that opportunity to play. So I think that's the saving grace there, is that there has been an outlet for them to be able to play and compete despite their varsity teams not playing.
Sure. No, all great points there. Let's circle back real quick to your first season at Nichols. You guys, I say in quotations, ended the season at 2-4. But you hit some adversity right away. You're missing some key players for a number of reasons. But your last game was a big win at home against Johnson & Wales. Did you start to feel like you were starting to find your stride and get your guys back and get your rotation set when it was all taken away?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I definitely think that especially after watching the film during COVID and just now, actually, as we're preparing for the spring, we were a team that was still trying to figure out our identity, forge our identity. We never really were fully complete as a roster until that last game. So we were going through some growing pains there. I know our first game was tough. We go on the road to West Con, play them the day of. We were supposed to play them in Florida, and then we rescheduled to, a nice warm day in the middle of February. It was a tough go for us. We're running like 5 middies out there. They're all gassed by the third quarter. That was a kind of bear and grin it and move on to the next game type of event. And then we had some tough battles. St. Joe's that goalie played unbelievable. He had like 21 saves, lost by 4. We take it to Riviere. We had a good win against them. But I still thought that, watching the film, we and it was a theme. We just tended to start slow. And I think that's on me as a coach, setting the tone in practices and trying to figure out a way to get guys going when we practice a little quicker to have it translate over into games. But that's a common theme that I saw with our team, is that at the beginning of games, we were very slow to kind of get into the flow of the game. But once we started rolling, we are very talented at putting the ball in the back of the goal. I thought our shot on goal numbers were very, very impressive. Looking back on it, when you're coaching the game and it's raw and it just happened, and you're like, man, the goalie had 20 saves. We didn't shoot very well. Well, sometimes you got to give the goalie a little credit. And I think we ran into some really, really good goalies last year who, 4 out of the 6 games, I'm pretty sure the goalie had over 20 saves. So, when the game first ended, I'm like, oh, man, we got to shoot better. And then I go back and watch it, and I'm like, wow, we were like 70% shooting on goal. We just got to finish. Sure. So I think it's just putting it all together. There's spurts of play. We play awesome, and we're doing all the right things, and we're putting the ball in the back of the net, and we're making saves, and we're breaking out, and we're getting stops on defense and picking up ground balls. And then there's moments where, like, we can't clear the ball. And it's like we talk about hockey, right? You can't get the puck out of your zone. You can't get the ball out of your end. It's going to eventually come back to bite you. You're too tired to play defense that long, and then you give one up, and then momentum starts to swing. And so that's the biggest thing I took from last year, from the film, kind of breaking it all down, taking it in, is that we just need to start faster. And that's on me as a coach to get them going in practices faster, set that tone. So when we hit the game, it becomes a norm, and it's not something that we have to keep trying to figure out or learn. So that's definitely one of the biggest things I noticed from our team. When we're on, we're on, and we're firing on all cylinders, and we got 2 unbelievable players in Hunter Ferreira and Kean Keohane at attack that were leading the conference in points before things shut down. So I feel really confident that when we have the ball, we're going to score. It's getting the ball out of our end and consistently giving them opportunities to run the offense and do their thing and be playmakers.
You took over a program at Nichols that was really on the come-up in terms of the lacrosse region here. 2018, they had 11 wins. They were an overtime goal away from making the playoffs. 2019, 10-win season. They snuck into the playoffs there. And the current Nichols athletic director, Eric Gobiel, was the coach of those teams. Now you come in and take over the program that he helped build up. What kind of pressure did you put on yourself to not let it fall off from where Eric had put it?
Yeah, to be honest, Eric was awesome about it when I got hired. It wasn't something of like, all right, you got to take this and run with it, John. Like, don't blow it. It was more of,
sure,
this is your program. I will support whatever decisions you make and whatever you see fit to kind of run the program. I'm going to support you because I hired you, and I really appreciated that. I definitely at first it felt a little, not awkward, but just kind of weird. Like, oh, okay, like the guy who was the coach and was really successful
He's
is now
still here.
my boss, and I got to live up to that. But I never let it linger. That I think at first it's kind of like you think about that, and you're like, oh man, that's kind of a tough situation. But then once you meet Eric and you get to know him, he's supportive and he just wants what's best for the program and wants to support me. And if he thinks that I'm making the right decisions and trust me because he hired me, then that helps me make more decisions down the road. And from the time I've been here to now, anytime I need something, I have a question or advice, he's been great. And I could not feel more supported from him and from the athletic department from that standpoint. So, I have a personal pride point as far as wanting to keep the progress going, the positive momentum. I definitely think that this is a program that could be at the top of the league with the Endicott's in the Western New England. Looking back on the history of the CCC championship game, it's a lot of Endicott, Western New England kind of trading spot for the top and making the tournament as far as the NCAA goes with the AQ for the conference. And I think that what the school has done to support athletics with the new renovations that we've had over the last couple of years, are having a full-time strength coach and Coach Bob, that's huge. And I sell that to recruits that we are in a very hard league. It's very competitive. You're going to play high-level Division III lacrosse. You're at an institution that really values athletics and gives you the tools that are necessary to be successful as far as the weight room, the field, the locker room. just the support staff from the academic side of things, the advising, everything at your disposal that you need to be a successful student athlete is at Nichols. And we play in a region and in a league that's one of the tops in Division III. You know, when I was at Trinity, my prior job, we were playing with West New England a lot, and they took it to us. I mean, I didn't know much about them my first year at Trinity. We played West New England, and we lost by like 11 goals. It was like 21-9, and I'm like, wow, who's West New England? Jeez. And then over the years, Roger Williams, Salve Regina, Curry, we played all those teams. So when the job came open, I was definitely interested, you know, in having Tim Mayo at Trinity with me prior to him taking the job as the head baseball coach at Nichols. You know, when he filled me in on the opening, it was definitely something that I was very, very interested in, just because of that potential, that opportunity to, you know, put my mark on the program and do some things that haven't been done before, as far as winning that CCC playoff game, getting to the championship, making the NCAA tournament. Those are all things for me as a young head coach that I want to do. And I try to instill that in my players. And I think my guys that I coach, they see that passion in me, and that I'm excited to be out there when I'm coaching them, and that I want the best for them. And ultimately that is to win. And not only on the field, but off the field too, you know, and we do things off the field to make sure that their minds are right when they hit the field for practice. But it's that, for me, I'm just hungry as a coach to, you know, build up my team as best we can, coach them up, get them out there and win some games and make noise. And I definitely think that people out there in other parts of the country, other programs, they notice what we're doing, what's going on, and they're nervous about Nichols Mental Lacrosse and what's to come.
And we talked earlier about recruiting now, and that's obviously going to be the foundation for bringing home a CCC championship. What kinds of student athletes are you looking for to bring into Nichols and wear the green, white, and black?
You know, I think the number one thing I look for is self-motivated individuals. And that's something that I looked for at every other school I worked at prior to coming to Nichols. It's people that want to be great at everything that they're doing, whether it's, you know, school, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's community service, whatever it may be. They want to be the best version of themselves. And I take that line from my former boss. He's still the head coach at Trinity, Jason Tarnell. You know, he instilled that in me, and that mindset of, we want our guys, our program, we want them to be the best versions of themselves. We want to wake up every day, attack the day, get things done that we need to get done, do the right things, and then wake up and do it again. And I think that's a very simplistic way of thinking about it, but it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to wake up every day, have a plan, know it's the right thing to do, and then attack the day and do it. And that's something that with our guys that I've had to constantly kind of instill that in them, because I think some of them understood it, some of them didn't. And some guys thought I would kind of let it slide and that let them kind of go off and do their own thing. And that's not the case. You know, I'm about accountability. I'm about guys just holding up their end of the deal as far as being a lacrosse player at Nichols, and that's be the best versions of yourselves, whether that's in the classroom, around campus, in the dorms, on the field, on the bus, the airport, wherever it may be. You know, we need to take pride in what we do. So when I'm recruiting, and I'm a big believer in recruiting, you recruit yourself. I'm a big believer in that. You're looking for similar qualities in recruits that you have. So when you're having conversations and you're in, you know, tough situations with players, you're able to talk through it because of the like-mindedness of the person. So vetting the recruits when I'm having conversations with them is a big part of bringing in the right people to the Nichols Mental Lacrosse program. It's, you know, we're not just like, hey, you want to come play? Sure, no problem. Here's your gear, and we'll see you out there. There's extensive conversations that are had. We just want to get to know them, understand what makes them tick, what their ideals are, what their goals are, and if it lines up, and they want to be at Nichols and we like them, then we say, hey, we want to offer you a spot in the recruiting class, and we hope that you attend Nichols and play for our team. And I definitely think that we're seeing success with that. I love the guys that we brought in this year. I like the guys that are committed in our 2021 class, and from the conversations I'm having with the recruits now in the 2022 class, it seems like they're the same types of people. And I've actually had some of my players reach out to them, to, you know, the ones that were really interested in Nichols and have visited already and want to learn more, talk with some of our current players. And those recruits have messaged me and said they've really appreciated those conversations to get a little more in-depth look at our program and what kind of makes us tick, not only from the operational standpoint, but from an individual standpoint. So, yeah, it's an evolving process, but for me, I want people who are self-motivated, that want to work hard, that aren't afraid of the challenge that's in front of us, which is winning the CCC and getting to the NCAA tournament.
We've had a great time talking with Nichols men's lacrosse coach John Carroll. John, I'm going to leave you with this question. You were a successful student athlete in your own right at Albany. You were from the goaltending position. You still hold some records there, so pat yourself on the back for that one. But what sorts of experiences as a student athlete for you are you hoping to bring to Nichols? And then secondly, as a goaltender, how has that made you a better coach? How has that maybe made you see the game from a different perspective and help shape you as a head coach?
Yeah, so I think the first part of your question, as far as what I'm trying to accomplish for the guys as far as their experience and kind of comparing it to my experience, I think they're different. They're a little bit of Division I, Division III. It can be – Division I is like a job as far as the ins and outs every day, competing for your job all the time. The seasons are a little longer. As far as the fall, they're not traditional. And then when you hit the field in January, like 5th or 6th, and your first game's not until like mid-February, it could be a little different. But ultimately, I just want our guys to want, again, compete, be the best versions of themselves, go out there and just wear that jersey with pride. You know, be proud that they're playing for Nichols, be proud that they're on the men's lacrosse team, and just understand that it's not something that everybody gets to do. It's something that is a privilege. You know, it's a privilege to wear the jersey, to go out there, represent your school, represent your family, yourself, and go out there and compete as hard as you can. And I think that we're getting to that point where the guys understand that they take pride in being a Nichols men's lacrosse player. They take pride in going out there and competing every day and butting heads with some of the better teams in the country, not only Division III, but in the nation. So I think for them, I want them to be successful, but I can't do it for them, right? I can kind of lead them in the right direction and instill my ideals and my beliefs. But ultimately, it's that nurturing of leadership with the older guys, and I think the captains have really grown as leaders from when we named them captain up until now. They understand their role is different from just being a senior, and that there's a little bit more of expectations put on them. And ultimately, I feel really, really good about our group going into this year. And if we hit the field and play, I think we're going to do some great things just because of the leadership that we have intact. So that's number one. Being a goalie, you do a lot of watching, especially when the ball's not on your end of the field. And then if you're not the starting goalie, you watch the whole game. So for me, I've been watching lacrosse a long time, and I'm still learning a lot. But ultimately, playing with some of the best players in the world that are still playing professionally now, and Miles Thompson, Ty, their cousin, Joey Rezateris is one of the leading scorers on the New England Black Wolves. And in the NLL, playing with tremendously talented players like that and being able to experience that has really helped me as a evaluator when I'm recruiting as far as what I'm looking for in individual players and just like how high the bar is to be the best and how close these guys can get to that when I'm evaluating them. That's been really helpful for me. But I think ultimately as a goalie and becoming a head coach, it's helped me because I've watched so much lacrosse. I've had to learn all the different ins and outs and different aspects of the game as far as, you watch a lot of offense, and you watch a lot of guys dodging you, but how do you dodge? Like, how do you get your hands free? How do you get the spots in the field that are high percentage that are going to get you a good opportunity to score goals or to draw a slide and get your teammate open? Those are some things that I didn't think about as a goalie before. I thought about, okay, I'm trying to set up my defense. I'm trying to set up my slide if our on-ball defender gets beat, and I'm trying to set my feet and get my hands ready for when the shot comes to make the save. So playing goalie in lacrosse, it's not like playing midi or playing attack or defense. It's a different mindset. So to be able to think outside the box, think abstractly as a goalie trying to pretend to be an attackman or pretend to be a defender or pretend to be a face-off guy, that's a skill that I've really had to develop over time. But I think sorry, my dog.
That's okay. I saw him lurking around.
But I think it's been super helpful for me just because I've been exposed to every facet of the game as a coach and as a goalie watching for so long that, when someone needs help with something, I'm able to do the best I can and give them some guidance as far as what they're looking for. It may not be the complete answer, especially if it's like face-offs or something like that. Like, that's why I have Coach Jimmy Carroll, right? He's a face-off guy, played in the MLL, played Colgate, all Patriot League guy. That's what I brought him in for. But as the head coach, if he's not around and someone has a question, I got to be able to answer it. So, being a goalie is a huge advantage because of how much you watch compared to, a midfielder who's constantly going back and forth, offense, defense, and subbing off, getting a drink, and then running right back on the field, or a defender who, he's worried about his matchup, or he's worried about sliding, things like that. So I see a lot of goalies becoming coaches nowadays. So it's I think it's a trend, but for me, I'm fortunate that I've been able to watch a lot of lacrosse, whether I'm in the net or on the sideline.
Great. John Carroll, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really insightful. We'd love to have you back on again soon. For now, hey, again, tomorrow night's the first of 8 meetings, Islanders, Devils. All the best of luck to you.
Best of luck to you as well. Thank you for the opportunity. Go Isles.
You got it, John. Talk to you soon.